Interesting story that we thought we'd follow up on today. Turns out more and more people, and maybe this doesn't come as a surprise, are tracking their partner through the geolocation function of their smartphones. Not that hard to figure out, easy to do, more people doing it all the time. But it does call into question, as some people note, specifically people who study this kind of thing, whether the need to locate your partner at any time really shows the problem is not with your partner, but instead with you. So we thought we'd take a dive into this. Francois Renaud is a sex therapist and psychotherapist based here in Montreal. Francois, thank you for being here, by the way. So your take on this is, wait a sec, if you think this is perfectly okay, maybe it's time to just, take another look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself what you're doing?
Yeah, you have to question, what are the real intentions behind it? Because you might have given, security reasons and stuff like that, but is that really the reason why? Is that how you're really using it? And even for the security reasons, do you really need to be aware of where your partner is at all times for security reasons? We used to live in a world where we didn't have cell phones, and people felt very fine without knowing exactly where their partner was at all times. Obviously, it can add to a certain level of security for yourself, but maybe it's a question of asking you, why can't you maybe just self-soothe yourself when it comes to that? But also the question of, if you're using it for maybe possessive or jealous reasons, and is your partner even aware how and when you tend to check them out? And would they necessarily be consensual to that? And a lot of people might actually hide that information from their spouses.
Okay, well, let me start with that. I mean, it's one thing to not tell your spouse you're doing it. What about if you have that discussion, there's consent, and you're both good with it? Why does that pose a problem, or does it?
Well, you have to question, we did discuss about it, but is that really how we're using it? Because people might say, yeah, we're going to use it for this, but I might use it for another reason. And then am I actually going to tell my partner I use it for that reason? And the reason that you accepted it, is it because you wanted to avoid a fight? Is it because you wanted to avoid looking suspicious that you don't want to be tracked? So to avoid the fight and looking suspicious, you accepted something that you didn't really accept that much. And on the other side, the person, are they going to turn off their location on their phone when they don't want to be followed by their partner? So all those things need to be really talked about clearly. And when you think about it, when you ask yourself, why do we really need this? Why do I really want this? And what are the true impacts behind it? Most of the time, some people don't necessarily are either not completely truthful with themselves and with their partners, or don't necessarily realize what the implications of this actually is in the long run.
So how do you deal with this? And it's funny, as you say this, I think to myself, it used to be, back in the day, as we say, it used to be just, hey, you know what, let me know when you get there. Now, you apparently, if you're geolocating someone, you need to know where they are all the time, so that's kind of off the table. How do you deal with this, and what is the right way to go about this, if there is one?
Well, I think asking you the question of why you need to have that information, and then ask yourself, do I really need it? And is there another way for me to handle not having the information? And we live in a society right now where we have access to so much information on our spouses, on their social media, who they've been with, how they've been with. You can stalk other people. And now we're kind of doing that with our cell phones, with our partners, with our kids all the time. And it's like there is no kind of freedom to just have a life and not potentially have somebody watch what you're doing. So I think that's where the question really lies is, do I want to have this information, and is it really that helpful to us? And am I able to just not have the information and be fine without not having the information? I think that's where really the question should be is, maybe I don't really need it, but yeah, it's going to comfort me to have it, but do I really want this to be the thing that comforts me?
Okay, I'm still not sure I have a solution here. First of all, I should point out, obviously when it comes to children, this is a completely different situation, right? You're worried about your kids. You want to go ahead and geolocate them, that's fine. Although I would think as well, given your point, there must come an age when even with a child, you maybe want to have that discussion. Maybe they don't like that idea.
You mean with the child?
Yeah, at a certain age, right? I mean, if it's one thing if it's a 9 or 10 or whatever, because kids have phones at a much younger age now. But if you have an 18, 19, 20-year-old, doesn't that require that discussion as well?
That you follow them? Well, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that you're going to tell them that?
I think even with younger children, that conversation should be had to tell them that you do have this information. And a lot of parents prefer not to tell because they don't want their kids to either know, or they're just going to maybe impose the situation to them. But if your kid is almost an adult or, late teens, I think that's very important to have that conversation. Do they really want them to be followed? Can they do things without their parents knowing where they are all at the same time? And a lot of people tend to say teenagers, they need to have that type of freedom to just sometimes break the rules. But if we have like all these surveillance things, whether it be on our partners or on our kids, and what are they going to start learning from that is, well, if my parents do that to me, then I should do that to my partner as well. So it justifies doing it to other people at the same time to other people. And it's like we're constantly being watched, and it's like we can't trust each other anymore. We can't just like have open conversations. We need to like verify where you were all the time. To me, that sounds more like insecurity than it sounds like actually wanting to have an authentic and an intimate relationship with other people.
So I will just ask you as a final question, because again, I'm trying to understand how to get around something like this for people listening. I mean, if you're in a relationship and either, the man or the woman says, I'm turning on geolocation, or you find out perhaps without it ever having been discussed, right, that you're being tracked. How do you deal with that? I mean, how do you sit down and have that conversation? How do you begin?
If you were geolocated without your knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a very serious conversation to have, to sit down with your partner and trying to understand what is the insecurity. Why couldn't you talk to me about it before? Why do you feel that you don't trust me enough to talk about it in the first place? Did you prefer to maybe not ask permission and just ask for forgiveness afterwards? So it can be a conversation loaded with a lot of emotions, but that can bring out a lot of patterns or dynamics in the relationship that are not just related to the geolocation, but a lot of things in the relationship where I might want to do things without your permission, and I'm going to go behind your back and do that. So that speaks a lot of volume about what the dynamic is. Is
it fair to say that if this does come up in a relationship, whichever partner brings it up, just in and of itself, that's a reason for concern?
No, not necessarily, because it is a kind of like a contemporary topic. It is new technology. People will question themselves about it. So I think asking yourself and your partner, is this something we want to do? And why do we want to do it is a healthy conversation to have, because it is a new technology that is easily accessible right now. So I think it's important to maybe, if you can bring it up and say, I don't want this in our relationship, that's not what I want, or this is why I would want it, and I'll explain it to you why I want it, and then the other person might agree or disagree why you might want it. And it might become either red flags or just like deal breakers for certain people where, well, if I can't have a partner that allows me to track them, then I don't want to be in a relationship with that type of partner, and vice versa. If you want to track me, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who wants to track me all the time.
Right.
So it speaks volumes to who we are, how we see relationships, and it's going to be probably a new type of conversation that people are going to have. Just like, are we monogamous or non-monogamous? Maybe people are going to start having these conversations. Do we track each other or do we not track each other?
We leave it at that. Fascinating stuff. Francois, I want to thank you so much. Really appreciate the time today.
It was my pleasure.